Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. So several weeks ago, I released my beginner's guide to Fude, and lots of you seemed really interested in that video. So I thought today I would share with all of you my top 5 Fude brushes. And so for those of you who aren't familiar with Fude, basically Fude refers to Japanese makeup brushes coming from the Kumano region of Japan, which is a region that historically was quite famous for its calligraphy brushes. So these makeup brushes are handcrafted using these sorts of traditional calligraphy techniques. And if you're interested in learning more about what makes Fude special and all of the different hair types and brands within Fude, then definitely check out my beginner's guide to Fude Beauty, which I'll link down below. So for today's video, I'll just say that I really love Fude brushes, and you can see my Fude brush collection here. And I would say ever since I started collecting these brushes, they've really upped my makeup game. I am not a makeup artist. I have no professional training in makeup. And so it's really been very helpful for me to have the right tools in the form of these sorts of brushes that really just help me both with creating more detailed looks and also a really smooth, nicely blended out look. And so I really love all of my Fude brushes, but I figured for any of you who are diving into Fude or who are interested in expanding your collection, hopefully today's video about my top 5 brushes will be helpful for giving you guys some potential ideas. And so in today's video, I'll be running through my top 5 brushes in the order that I would put products on my face. So I'll put together a full face using those brushes just so you can see all of the different techniques that I use with these brushes. So without further ado, let's dive into my top 5 brushes. So this first brush will likely come as no surprise for any of you who have been watching my videos, but this is the Goss number 16 brush. And I basically love starting out every single eyeshadow look with this brush. So you can see here that's a really big fluffy crease brush. And so I find this is perfect for putting my initial transition shade down and even some of the more medium tone shades as well in the outer third. And this is really a brush that has significantly changed my makeup game. Basically, ever since I got this brush, I found that it's so much easier for me to have that really beautiful gradient effect in my crease area. And I was actually pretty hesitant at first to pick up this brush. I think I first heard of it from Kinky Sweat, who really had rave reviews for this brush, but a lot of folks have described this brush as better for folks with larger eyes rather than folks with smaller hooded eyes like myself. And so I was a little bit worried about picking up this brush because it is such a large blender, but I found that it's actually perfect for someone like myself who does have hooded eyes, because basically I don't have a ton of lid real estate that actually shows up when I put on my makeup. So you can probably tell there's not a ton of my actual mobile eyelid that you can see when my eyes are open. But at the same time, there's a decent amount of real estate over here between where my eye is and where my brow is. And that's what this is really perfect for. Because I think if you have an eye shape like me, it's really helpful to have a really nice gradient in this area between your eye and your brow bone, because there's actually a lot of real estate there to play with. And so what I love about this brush is it really does a great job of putting that initial shade down and then an additional shade, and everything just kind of blends together super seamlessly with this brush. And also I would say before I got this brush, I don't think I was blending my eyeshadow up high enough. I know it's a little bit scary to kind of bring your eyeshadow really close to your brow bone, but I really do think if you have hooded eyes, it really helps to open them up more and show more of your eyeshadows if you kind of have a higher blend to them. And this does a great job of enabling that. So now to start off today's eyeshadow look, I'm gonna go in with my Viseart Neutral Mattes palette. And I'm gonna go into this shade over here, so the second lightest shade, because I wanna show you guys a trick that I like using this brush for that is really great if you wanna ensure a really seamless gradient. So basically this shade doesn't really look like much on my skin. It is basically very similar to my skin tone, as you can tell. But I like using this essentially near my brow bone, kind of in the upper crease area, just to set my primer and ensure that this area will have a really nice seamless blend to it. Next up, I'm gonna go into my Pat McGrath Midnight Sun Mothership palette, and I'm gonna go into this Taboo shade, which is a really great transition shade. So I'm just going to sweep this all over the outer third and crease area. And so you can probably already see that because I laid down that previous matte shade, this is just blending out super, super easily. And if you watch my previous videos, you know that I am often lazy and don't go in with that first step. But for today's video, because I wanted to just show you guys all of the different uses of this brush, I did just want to show you guys that technique in case you do struggle a bit with having an even blend in your crease area. And you guys can see this is just so easy to use. I'm not being very precise with how I blend out my shadow here, but because this brush is so fluffy, it just does a really good job of diffusing the pigment, and so you don't have any of those harsh lines and edges, which is really, really perfect if you want kind of a smoky eyeshadow look. There we go, so transition shade done. And honestly, this is usually when I would switch out to a smaller brush to do my deepening shade. But since today we're only using these top 5 Fude brushes, I'm also gonna try using this for the deepening shade. So I'm basically just going to take the tip of this brush and lightly dip it into extreme dusk, and then just kind of pop that in the outer third near the lash line. And this is not necessarily the best use case for this brush, but in a pinch, you can definitely use this for this purpose as well, and just kind of be a little bit careful with it, since obviously this is a big fluffy brush, and so it's going to be a little bit more diffuse in how it places this deep pigment. So there we go, deepest shade down, and I'm just gonna go back in now with Taboo to just further diffuse everything and blur that deepening shade together with the transition. And I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but this is an undyed goat hair brush in case any of you were wondering. Alrighty, so there we are with the crease completed with this Goss number 16 brush. So this is definitely a brush I would highly, highly recommend if you're someone who has any sort of blending challenges with your crease area. And as you could see today, even though my eyes are not super large, I was still able to use this brush for basically my entire crease. And also this brush has a bunch of other use cases as well. So you can use this for under eye powdering if you want something pretty precise just to set your concealer. You can also use this for highlighter, so both for cheek highlight or for nose bridge highlight, which this kind of shape and size is really excellent for. So I really, really love this brush. This is probably the brush that has been most game-changing in terms of my makeup application. So the next brush is the Sonia G Mini Booster. So this is a much smaller crease-shaped brush in dyed goat hair, and you can use this for a bunch of different use cases. So this is my favorite brush for inner corner highlight, which I would normally do later in the makeup routine, but I just want to show you guys all together what you can do with this brush. So here I'm going to go into Skin Show Divine Glow from my Bronze Seduction Mothership palette from Pat McGrath, and look at that. It's just the perfect blend in the inner corner. So what I really love about this brush is oftentimes when you're doing inner corner highlight, it just kind of looks like you have really concentrated pigment in your inner corner. But it can be hard to have that really nicely blended out look where the center is more pigmented and then it kind of diffuses out. But the shape of this brush makes it so easy. Like you saw, I didn't really have to even do any blending with this. Just kind of going in directly like that gives you that really beautiful diffused effect. I also love using this for brow bone highlight. So here I'm going into that same Skin Show Divine Glow shade. And I find using this on the side, so basically tapping it in like this, really picks up just the perfect amount of pigment and distributes it really, really nicely on the brow bone. And again, it avoids picking up too much pigment where you have that sort of stripe of highlight. It just really nicely diffuses the highlight pigment, and also is really great if you want to blend things out a little bit more. This is also an excellent brush for the lower lash line if you want a bit more of a diffused look. So I have again my Midnight Sun palette, and I'm just gonna go into that Taboo shade and just sweep this all over the lower lash line. And I love how this brush has the perfect mixture of being stiff enough to give you a lot of control, but also soft enough that it feels really, really comfortable on the lower lash line. So if you have sensitive eyes and you often feel like you're tearing up a little bit when you're doing your lower lash line work, this is a really, really excellent brush that will just feel so, so nice and comfortable on that lower lash line. Lastly, I don't actually use this brush for this purpose very often, but of course you can use this for your actual crease area. So I have here Extreme Aubergine from my Bronze Seduction palette, and this is really great if you just want to really get in there and be pretty precise about your placement of your deepest shadow. This is really great for placing that pigment there and just lightly blending that out. And you can see this brush picks up a decent amount of pigment. I just love how this mini booster is such a workhorse. You can really just use it for all sorts of different purposes. Really anything where you want some precise pigment placement, but also with a nice blend. And you can see too that because this is a really small brush, if you want to go into that crease area over here, it just fits really, really perfectly. So I really love this Sonia G Mini Booster, and I would highly recommend this for really all of the use cases I just described. This is also a brush that I've considered buying multiples of because I think it's the rare brush that you can use it for everything from a really light highlight shade to a really deep crease shade. So if you like to create some more detailed but still blended out looks, this is a really great multifunctional brush. Next up, we have brush number 3, which is the Chikuhodo GSN 9 brush. So this is a squirrel hair brush, and this is actually one of my very first Fude brushes. And I love using this for all sorts of different applications around shimmer. Even though this is a squirrel hair brush, so it's extremely soft, it does an amazing job with picking up shimmer and really packing it on. Also for me, given that I don't have a ton of eyelid space, this is really the perfect shape to really get in there and be able to create more detailed looks where you can have multiple shimmer shades on the lid. And so to illustrate that, I'm going to go in first with Bronze Eclipse from Midnight Sun and put this on the inner third of my eyes. And you can see how this really gives you that precision in terms of just laying it in that little inner triangle area. And pro tip, if you want to pick up some more pigment, just kind of shimmy the brush in there and that will just give you some more pickup. Versus if you want to have a lighter placement, then just tap your brush onto the shadow. So you can see that's just such a beautiful placement of metallic shadow. And also you can use the edge of this for blending as well. So if you want to kind of diffuse that edge a little bit, then you can do that pretty precisely with the tip of this brush. So now just quickly cleaning off that brush, now I'm going to go into Wicked Envy, and this is going to go all over the middle of the lid. Just going to pack that on and then blend that into the matte shade on the outer edge. And honestly with this brush, I sometimes even like putting a third metallic pigment in the outer portion if I'm trying to use all of the shades in a palette. And so I love how with this brush, you just have that sort of precision in order to put a bunch of different shimmers on your eyelid. And it's just such a soft, luxurious brush, even though it does a really great job of picking up eyeshadow. Of course, with much more chunky formulas, I do often prefer to go in with a finger. But for any sort of metallic or shimmer or satin finish shadows, this is really the perfect brush. And now because this is a paddle shaped brush, I did just want to show you guys that it has a thin end as well. And so what that means is that you can use the tips of this for lower lash line work to pretty precisely place your shadows. And so to show you guys that, I'm gonna go back into Bronze Eclipse, but this time just pack it onto the top of my brush, and then use that for the inner 2/3 of my lower lash line. And then that same technique into Wicked Envy, just packing it onto the bottom and then just sweeping this along the bottom of my lash line in the middle area. And now to finish off the lower lash line, I'm just going to take a tiny bit of Extreme Dusk and just sweep that in the outer third. And again, this is just the softest brush. So if you have a sensitive lower lash line but like having some precision placement there, this is really a great brush to go with. And finally, the last thing I want to show you guys with this brush is that it can also pick up some of these Blitz Astral shades. So if you want to get some of the glitter topper action on your lids, but you don't want to use a finger, then you can basically just go in with this brush and just really lightly tap the surface to just pick up some of that glitter. And then just lightly dust it on your lid. And if you guys watch my channel, you know that I often just go in with a finger for this step, but this is a really great alternative if you prefer to not use your finger in your eyeshadows. And this is a really great way to also control how much you add on, so you can just slowly build things up. Alrighty, there we go. So as you can see, the Chikuhodo GSN 9 brush is just such a great brush for any sort of shimmer placement and also for slightly more detailed lower lash line work. I am extremely impressed with this brush because often when you're talking about super soft squirrel hair brushes, you don't really associate that with high pigmentation, but this brush is excellent at really picking up and packing on layers of shimmer and all sorts of different textures. You saw that this even works with more glittery formulas. So that's it for the eyeshadow look, which I'm honestly pretty impressed I was able to pull off with just these brushes over here. As you guys can probably tell from my collection, I have a lot of eyeshadow brushes, and so normally I would incorporate a lot more of them into making a look. But honestly, if you're just starting out with Fude and you have a similar eye shape or eyeshadow technique to me, then definitely just pick up these 3 brushes, and this can really get you all the way there in terms of making this sort of colorful smoky eye look. So now I'm gonna go in with some eyeliner and be right back with the 2 face brushes. So here we have brush number 4, which is the Goss Artist Large, and this is a combination of squirrel hair and dyed goat hair. And honestly, I really love this entire artist collection from Goss. It's really the most beautiful Fude brush collection that I personally own. As you guys can see, it has just this gorgeous wooden ferrule and this little design at the end that's supposed to be reminiscent of calligraphy brushes, which you can hang like this. And so I just really love the whole design and aesthetic of this brush collection, and I would highly recommend any of the brushes in this collection. I find myself reaching for these artist brushes all the time. They're extremely luxurious, extremely soft, yet do an excellent job of picking up pigment. I picked the Artist Large brush today because this is definitely my most luxurious brush in my entire collection, and also one of the most multifunctional brushes. You can honestly do your entire face with this brush if you like a nice diffused look. So today I have my Charlotte Tilbury Instant Look in a Palette in Glowing Beauty, and to start off I'm gonna dip into this face powder over here and just lightly use this to set my face. Today I just have some of my Pat McGrath concealer and also my Daydream cushion from M Cosmetics. And this is just such a perfect, really soft powder brush. It feels amazing on the skin. And you can use this both for a very light dusting of powder, or if you really want to pick up some more pigment and really pack it on, this is great as well. And so cleaning off this brush a little bit, now I'm gonna go into the bronzer side of things and just use this to chisel out my face. So one thing I really like about this brush is that it's big enough that you can use it to powder your entire face without feeling like you're having to, like really work at it. But at the same time, it's small enough that you can also use this for other face products. So I also really love using this as a diffuse blush brush, but it's small enough too for bronzer, and in a pinch you could use this for highlight as well. So you can see how this just really is laying down some very nice light layers and is doing an excellent job of blending things out. And I'm also just gonna use this to add a little bit of bronzer around the perimeter of my face as well. And the large fluffy size of this really makes it excellent for this all over bronzy effect. And then finally some along my jawline. So there we go, initial face products down. So in case you guys are curious, this is the whole artist collection. So if you really want to have all the face brushes you'll ever need to do your face makeup, this is a really great collection to pick up. You can see that other two brushes are pointy in shape, and so they're great for much more precision work, but this brush is excellent for anything that's more diffused around the face. So now the final brush of the day is the Sonia G Cheek Pro brush. And you can see this is a really nice pinched ferrule cheek brush. It's really nice and fluffy at the top. So just a really cute cotton ball shape to it. And this is one of the best feeling brushes that I have in my collection, and I fell in love with this brush upon first use, which is really rare for me because usually when I first buy a brush, I find there's a little bit of a learning curve before I feel totally comfortable using it. But this one was just so intuitive and easy to use from the get-go. And so this is the newest brush in my collection that has made it into the top 5 list. And so my favorite use case for this brush is for blush. It is really the perfect blush brush, but you can also use this for bronzer or for highlight. So first off, I'm gonna go in to the Cheek Pop shade from the Charlotte palette. And you can see this brush does a decent job of picking up quite a lot of pigment quite easily. This brush is super intuitive in that you can use it on its side like this, or you can use the top like this. Really, there's no way to use this brush and have it not provide you a nice blended out blush look. And it's just so soft and luxurious on the skin. So this is a dyed goat hair brush, but it's extraordinarily soft. And then even though this is a little bit large for highlight, you can also kind of use it in a pinch for highlight. So I'm just gonna use the top of it and lightly tap it into that highlight shade and just use it straight on like this. And you can see that, especially if you like a more diffuse highlight look, this is a really excellent brush to easily achieve that sort of effect. And then I know we already have bronzer down, but just to show you guys that this can also work quite well for that purpose, if you want something a little bit more precise than what the Artist Large brush can give you, then this is really perfect. Basically, this, as the name implies, Cheek Pro, is really a great go-to brush for just your entire cheek product application. So here we are with the completed look using just my 5 favorite Fude brushes. I love my other brushes as well, but I would say these are the only 5 brushes in my collection that I would really change nothing about. I think these are basically the epitome of what I would want from these kinds of brushes. And so I would really not change anything about these. And as much as I love collecting new brushes and new brush shapes, these are the only ones I would consider buying multiples of. So I hope this video was helpful for any of you who are curious about my Fude collection. And I would love to know down below if any of you have some favorite Fude brushes as well, because I am constantly growing my collection and I love trying out new brushes. If you guys like this video, then please let me know in the comments down below. And if you guys haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!